Acha, opening prayer on page 194. On the second one on that page, also from the Devi Aparada Kshamapana Stotram, Shankaracharya's composition. You are familiar with that. You have chanted some stanzas from that. So we'll chant that one. Om न मंत्रम नो यंत्रम तदपि च न जाने स्तुतिमहो न चाह्वानं ध्यानं तदपि च न जाने स्तुतिकथा न जाने मुद्रास्ते तदपि च न जाने विलपनम् परम जाने मातस्त्वदनुसरणं क्लेशहरणम् ओम शांति शांति शांति. O Mother, I do not know your sacred names nor the symbolic figures of thy worship. Alas, I do not know how to sing your glories, nor how to invoke and meditate upon you. I know not words of prayer, nor the diverse rituals of worship, nor how to lay my grief before thee. But, O Mother, this much I know, that to follow you is to remove all my suffering. If we follow the Divine Mother, if we love her, abide by her instructions, then that will be end of all sufferings. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Verse number 12 to 18, that portion, those verses describe the Supreme Reality Brahman. So far we have seen the description of Kshetra, the physical aspect of our personality. And then from verses 1 to 6, Kshetra, Kshetrajna also. And 7 to 11, we studied the 20 signs of self-knowledge, virtues that bring about self-knowledge, Atmajnana. Now 13 to 12 to 18, this description of the Supreme Reality Brahman. Before we study this segment 12 to 18, describing the Supreme Reality Brahman, Parabrahman, Paramatma, whatever, we have to know that we are trying to do something impossible. That is, Brahman cannot be described in words, and yet we are trying to understand by words. So there will be contradictory statements. It is neither this nor that, neither of that one. Not this, not that, not the other one. So let us see verse number 12. I think we began this last time. Jneyam yat tat pravakshami yajñātva amrtamashnute anādimat param brahma nasattanna saduchyate. I shall now, Bhagavan says, I shall now set forth the knowable, Jnayam. The object of all knowledge is our very own self. Knowable, by grasping which one attains immortality. That's the benefit of attaining self-knowledge. One becomes immortal. If we study other branches of knowledge, all the social sciences, science, technology, literature, humanities, whatever, they bring some benefits. They are essential, necessary, but they will not change our inner nature. They may not necessarily make our mind pure. We see that examples in news, so many highly qualified people, they do immoral things, illegal things also. So that does not change a person inwardly. It brings benefits, worldly benefits, money, fame, etc. But by knowing self-knowledge, knowledge of Brahman, the benefit is amrtatvam, immortality. Yajnatva, by knowing which, amritam ashnute, a person achieves immortality. How immortality here does not mean in a physical sense. Our bodies will not become immortal. They are material in nature, they perish, like all other material objects in nature. Even these very big things which live for billions of years, like galaxies, they also perish. Nothing is permanent. They live for longer period. But human beings live for 70, 80, 90, 100 years, then their body perishes. But by knowing our true nature, which is immortal, Brahman, we become one with it, and then that is immortality. Brahman is immortal, anadimat. Second line it will say. Shashvatam. That already description of Brahman came in the second chapter. How Brahman is immortal and it has other qualities came in the second chapter. Please remember one shloka in the second chapter. Shloka number 20, verse number 20 in chapter 2. There Bhagavan had already described the immortal nature of Brahman. When we know self-knowledge, we become one with it. Knowing means not knowing as an object, but becoming one with the object of knowledge. The I and you, I and he merge into only it. Brahman remains. The knower merges into the known. That is true knowledge. That way we become immortal. So second chapter, verse number 20, description of Brahman. Najayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Sharire hanyamane, when the body dies, which it has to die sooner or later, nahanyate atma nahanyate. Self does not perish, it is immortal. Najayate, it does not take birth, it's always been there. Anadi, beginningless, beyond time. Anadi, najayate, namriyate, it does not die, there is no death. There is no beginning, there is no end, always present. It was never absent, it will never be absent in the future. Ajaha means it has no birth. Ja means janma, aja means no birth, always been there. All other beings take birth at a certain point in time. None of us were here in the 18th century. We are here now and won't be here in the 22nd century. So our existence on this earth as human beings is limited in time, finite duration. But Brahman is not like that. Najayate namriyate kadachit, like that is description of Brahman came in second chapter 20. Now that is what he is referring to here. Anadimat, second line. Anadimat means something that has no beginning. Adi means beginning, anadi means no beginning. When is God's birthday? Sometimes children ask, when you celebrate their birthday, there is no birthday for God. There is birthday for Rama, Krishna. If they come in human form, then there is birthday. You celebrate Krishna's Janmashtami, the birth of Jesus Christ. Those are in human form when God appears. Then they have beginning and an end. That human form has a beginning and an end. But Lord himself has no beginning and an end. For the sake of human beings, to help human beings, they take human birth. Otherwise, they have no interest in being a human being. God has no interest, but he comes out of compassion to help people in this world. That was described in the fourth chapter, why he takes incarnation. Anadimat, no beginning, always been there, will always be there. Param Brahma, that Supreme Brahman, Param Brahma, Supreme Brahman. Na sat, na sat, tat, na asat uchate. There are so many words there combined together in the second part of second line. Na Sat. Sat, Tat. Tat is also hidden there. Na Sat, Tat, Na Asat, Uchate. You have to separate the words. It's all combined together. It is neither existent nor non-existent. That means it is not perceptible by the senses. If something is perceptible by the senses, I can see, I can touch, I can hear, like this book, this either is or is not. It has to be one of them. Only two possibilities. Either book is there or book is not there. Because it is something that can be seen by the eyes, touched by the hands, etc. But if something that is not amenable to the senses cannot be seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelled, then we don't know whether it is there or not. So it is neither existent nor non-existent. That means it cannot be described in words. Mind cannot grasp it, and words cannot express it. That we know from earlier studies. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a famous saying, where when the mind and speech, they both went to understand Brahman and express in words. Mind said, I will understand what Brahman is. Speech said, I will express in words. Neither of them could do anything. They came back, both failed in their mission to know Brahman. So that famous sentence comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. From whom mind and speech came back, failed in their mission to grasp Brahman and to express Brahman. So cannot be known by the mind. So no matter how we describe Brahman, it will be inaccurate. That is why Sri Ramakrishna said in the gospel that everything in this world has been defiled by the human tongue. Maybe we can talk about everything in nature. Only Brahman is the only substance, only thing that that remains undefiled by the tongue. Can't say in words what Brahman is. Then we show how to describe Brahman? Silence. Real teachers don't use many words. In silence, they teach. There's a famous hymn, Dakshinamurti Stotram, composed by Shankara. At the end of the Dakshinamurti Stotram, there's a short couplet which describes the indescribable nature of Brahman in words. The sloka is Chitram Atataror Mole Vriddha Shishyaya Guru Gurosta Maunam Yakyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya. Chitram means wonderful, Vichitra. How wonderful it is. What is wonderful? Vatataro or mole. Vatataro means the, what is that people tree? Ashwatha tree. Vatataro or mole. At the, under the tree, teachers used to teach students under a tree those days. There were no air conditioned, centrally heated buildings for schools. In the forest was the place, and the trees they would teach. Vatataro or mole, Chitram, most wonderful. Vriddha Shishya. Shishya means the students were all senior, older in age than the teacher. Yuva Guruhu. Yuva means a youth. Guru was a youthful person, young person. Students were older in age. Age does not matter. You can study from anybody. From a child also they can study. Then the second line is Gurostu Maunam Yakyanam. Guroho Vyakyanam. Vyakyanam means commentary. The commentary of the Guru was Maunam, silence. No words were spoken. Then what happens? Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya. All the Shishyas, the students, became free from all their doubts. Knowledge came, all doubts were cleared. No words were spoken. That is how Shankaracharya, in one fraction of a second, taught knowledge to Totakacharya. It didn't take much time, and no words were spoken. So that is how true knowledge has to be conveyed. Swami Vivekananda has said in one place, spirituality can be transferred to somebody on a platter. If a highly realized guru is there, who has become one with Brahman, Brahmajnani is there, he doesn't have to give a lecture. No books are necessary. He can simply look at a person and that person enlightened. Just a look or a touch. All by sankalpa, by thought. Sankalpa matrana, even the guru, such a guru, if he thinks in his mind that may this person be illumined, that person will become illumined. That's how knowledge, Brahma Jnana is transmitted. Otherwise, we have to do tapas. For people like us, we have to do tapas. This is what Upanishad says. How to know Brahman? In the Taittiriya Upanishad, a student goes to the teacher. Teacher was the father. Those days, fathers used to be the teacher. And the son asked the father, Father, please teach me about Brahman. And the father did not give any lecture, no class, nothing, no book. The father simply said two words to the son. Tapasa Brahma Vijagnya Sasva. 3 words. By tapas, no Brahman. Tapas means meditation. So not by reading books. But we have no other recourse. So we have to read in books which is does not give clarity. That is why Anadimat Param Brahma Nasattanna Saduchyate. It cannot be described in words. Okay, next verse. It's very interesting. Verse number 13. I think we did this also last time. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro mukham sarvatah svatimalloke sarvamavritya tishtati. This is what is visible to the senses. God visible to the senses in the form of all the beings. How can we see God? We can see in human form. Sri Ramakrishna, those who could see him during his lifetime, they could see, we can see him in photographs like that. But other than that, how can we see God? Unless he takes the human form or some other form, then only we can see. Form must be there. Qualities and names must be there. Attributes must be there. Then we can know. So that is what being described. God with form. All the beings whom we see, animals and plants, people included, they are all forms of God. Infinite number of forms. He takes the form of every being. They appear in the form of beings. He appears. That's being described here. Virat Purusha, the cosmic being in the form of all the beings. This has great implication for our daily life, this sloka. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro mukham sarvatah shvutimalloke sarvamavritya tishtati. On all sides, it has hands. All hands are God's hands. Sarvata Pani. Pani means hand. Padam means feet. All feet are God's feet. He has feet everywhere. Sarvataha Akshi. Akshi means eyes. Shira means head. Mukham means face. All faces are God's faces. Whichever face you see, even in the face of the most wicked person, if you see, if you face of an elephant or a cow or a dog, if you see God's face, God resides in all. So that's how we have to deal with everybody with respect. And then with compassion, not with hatred. Sarvata Kshishiro Mukham. Sarvata Shrutimat. Shrutimat means ears. All ears are God's ears. Loke, in this world, Sarvam Avritya Tishtati, pervading everything is God is. God is present in all and everything. Sri Ramakrishna had this experience in the Gospel, page 345, 46. Sri Ramakrishna explains how he saw everything as God. Everything, including inanimate objects. He was doing the worship of the Divine Mother Kali at the Hindu temple, at the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar one day. He was a priest at that time. All of a sudden, he had this mystic experience. Everything dissolved. All the forms dissolved. The marble floor, the door frame, the window sill, the puja materials, the water pot, and the food that was kept, and himself, and the image he was worshipping, everything dissolved and became ocean of pure consciousness. Everything, animate, inanimate. And there was a wicked man standing outside the Kali temple. He also appeared like the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother has taken all the forms. He had this experience several times. He describes that once in his own verse in English Gospel 345, 346. So everything is the Lord, God Himself, Brahman itself, appearing as the universe. That's what Vedanta says. There are different theories. One theory says there is a process of evolution. That theory comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad, how God became the universe, or has He become the universe? Or does He appear as the universe? Or is the universe there at all? All these are different questions you study in the Mandukya Upanishad. There in the Taittiriya Upanishad, the process of evolution is being described. Actually, things change. Parinamavada, they call it. So how does it happen? The passage says, Atmana akashasam bhutaha. In the beginning, only Atman was there. Atman is Brahman. Pure conscious ocean. Infinite ocean of pure consciousness. No division, no object. That's how it was. Then, Atmana akashasam bhutaha. Akasha means space came into existence. Space was projected. When space was not there, only pure consciousness. Space is a field where everything else has to happen. So the field was created. First step of evolution. Atmana akashastam bhutaha akashad vayuhu. When space came into existence, space came into existence, then Vayu, air comes into existence. 5 elements. Akasha, Vayu. Vayoragnihi. From space, when air came into existence, heat also was generated. Agni. Beginning, there was no space, nothing. Then space came. Then air came. Then fire, warm heat came. Agnerapaha. Next step is water. Abhyah Prithvi. From water, Prithvi, earth, materials, solid material came. Prithivya Oshadhayaha. When earth came into existence, Oshadhaya means plants. Plants came first. Oshadebhyo Annam. From plants, food came. You get food from plants. Annat Purushaha. From food, human beings and other beings, animals, they came. Like this, gradual process of step-by-step process of evolution is described in the Taittiriya Upanishad. According to one view, but another view is there is no evolution at all. Nothing really happened. Nothing came, nothing went. Just Brahman is there, but how to account for the world we are seeing? It's only misperception. Vivartavada, they say. The famous example is given how one thing can be misperceived as another thing which it is not. Rope appearing as a snake. That example always will come. Rope does not become a snake. It always remains a rope. It has no intention. Rope has no intention to deceive people by putting upon the makeup of a snake. It doesn't do anything. The snake is it is, but people misperceive it as a snake, and then all the fear and everything. So these, like this, there are different theories. So since we are seeing all the human beings, and only Brahman is there, so Brahman takes the form of, or appears to have taken the form of all the beings. Whether he has actually changed or not, I don't think he has changed. One cannot change. Like milk can become curd, then different product, but God does not become the world. He remains as he is, unchanged. But we are seeing the world. That is because of misperception. That's one theory that is acceptable to some people, many people. Sarvata Shrutimat, all ears are God's ears. Loke, in this world, Sarvam Avritya. Avrana means encompassing, covering everything. Brahman Saha Tishtati, he remains. So the implication is, whatever we are saying, animate, inanimate, plants, animals, people, planets and stars and galaxies, whatever we are saying, big or small, good or bad, is all the Lord himself appearing in that form, appearing to us in that form. Only in the waking state, that too. In deep sleep, what happens to all these things? Nothing is visible. In Samadhi, everything, they say, those who had Samadhi, they say nothing is only super consciousness prevails, no name, no form, no object. So this is the visible explanation of the visible part. Since Brahman is the only thing and he is present in all, we should translate this into action by recognizing divine presence in all. Many of the people may not believe in all this. They say there is no such God. Like that. We don't have to argue. It's not our job to convince them. We have no mandate to convince other people about existence of God or anything. Since we are all interested, we study together. A lot of people are not interested. It's not our job. We should not take the responsibility to teach other people about God who are ready to do that one. They don't have such mandate. So it has implication now on our behavior. Yesterday, last night, Swamiji Atmajanji in his class described the story of Rasika. Very interesting story, very moving story. He was a janitor, a sweeper in the Dakshineshwar temple grounds. He also received knowledge and devotion by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna. No lecture was given, he was illiterate, no class, no lecture, no book, nothing. But he got realization by pure devotion, by grace. By the grace of God, all this knowledge has to come. But study is some part it plays. Study of Gita and other books plays some initial part. It is helpful. We have to do that one. But it's not enough to know God. Studying Gita itself, by itself, will not bring knowledge of God. It's the first step. We have to put into practice what Bhagavan Sri Krishna has said in many places in the Gita. This is one such place. Since God is present in all, we have to recognize his presence and deal with everybody as if we are dealing with God himself. We are dealing with God himself. That came in the 6th chapter. This is not the first time he is saying this one. In the 6th chapter, chapter 6, sloka number 30, 30, he said exactly same thing he had said, using different words. There he said, 6:30, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. He who sees me, he or she who sees me in all means all beings without exception, who sees God, a person who can see God. Sarvam cha mai pashyati, sees everything in God. No difference between world and God. So only God present, being seen as the world. Once ignorance is removed, we see everything as God. Only God remains. So that is the idea here. So we have to deal with with everybody with respect, compassion and love, subject to common sense. If we get too close, friendly towards evil people, if you go into the cage of a lion in the zoo, then there'll be a disaster. The lion does not know anything about God. That we have to be careful in applying this instruction in our daily life. Then, in this context, before I leave this verse number 13, I want to remind you of one more sloka in chapter 5, 5:18, chapter 5, sloka 18. There, Bhagavan Sri Krishna had already told us that we should deal with everybody with love and compassion, no hatred towards any being. Which was sloka 5:18? Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva shapake cha pandita samadarshinaha. Samadarshitvam is being described there. Samadarshitvam means same-sightedness, treating everybody with love and respect, compassion, but subject to common sense. What is the basis for Samadarshitvam? Presence of God. The only thing common to all beings is presence of God. In every way, people are different. Every animal is different. Every plant is different. Every leaf is different. Every petal of a flower is different. No two things are exactly identical in nature. But what is one thing common to all without exception? Presence of God. That is the basis for Samadarshitvam. You remember that the Samadarshitvam, I think it was in the capital, in Khetri, Rajasthan. Swami Vivekananda was visiting. He was the guest of the king there. Was it in Khetri? Yeah. In that king's court, the king had arranged a dance performance by a woman dancer, and she was performing dance in the court. King and the courtiers were all witnessing. Swamiji did not go. He was invited. He said, I don't want to. I'm a sannyasi. How can I see a woman dance? Sri Ramakrishna said, don't even look at a woman. Don't even look at the picture of a woman for a sannyasi. Rules are very strict. Sri Ramakrishna said. So Swamiji didn't go. He stayed in his room. But a lady, dancer, she sang a song. That song was Avaguna Chittanadharo. I don't know the full song. Don't look at my faults. The water in the river Ganga, the water in the flowing in the gutter, all is water, all is Brahman. God is in all and everything. Don't disregard me, neglect me because I happen to be a dancing woman. Considered low in society. She's woman means divine mother. All women are divine mother. Dancer or prostitute doesn't matter. Sri Ramakrishna saw the prostitute Ramani as a divine mother. That's the truth. All women are divine mother. That comes in the Chandi, and Swamiji also talked about in Square Talks in Thousand Island Park. Anyway, that's a different topic. So, Samadarshitva, 5:18. Vidyavanaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shunichaiva shapakecha pandita samadarshinaha. What is the sign of a pandita, knowledgeable person? Pandita has two meanings. The pandit who does puja, it's a profession. This is a job. If you go to some pilgrimage place in India, the pandas are there. They harass you for money. And that's not the pandita we are talking about here. Pandita means a knowledgeable person with knowledge and humility both. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane vinaya sampanna. Vinaya means humility must be there. Such a person and the most wicked person or lowest person in society and all the animals in between, in all of them, same divine is present. In elephant, in God, in the dog, in everything is present. So we should treat all without hatred. Adveshta sarva bhutanam. 12th chapter, verse number 13. That we study. So that is this verse number 13. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro mukham sarvatah srutimalloke sarvam avritya tishtati. Very important verse. Now we go to verse number 14. Here, the indescribable nature of Brahman is described. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhritchaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. Sarva indriya. Indriya means sense organs. How many sense organs? 11 sense organs. 10 sense organs, 5 sense organs of perception, jnanendriyas, 5 sense organs of action, motor organs, and mind is also 11 sense organs. That is studied in the 5th shloka in this earlier chapter. Indriyani deshaikam cha. So 11 sense organs. Sarvendriya guna abhasam. It seems that in the form of beings, God in the form of beings possesses all the 11 sense organs. You all have 11 sense organs. Sometimes they're not functioning properly, but they are there. I may not be able to see properly, ear may not be able to hear properly, but it is there. Sarvendriya guna bhasam. As beings, animals and people, God possesses all the sense organs, 11 sense organs. Sarvendriya vivarjitam. In truth, he is devoid of all sense organs. God is pure consciousness, no name, no form. How can he have any sense organ? So, two opposite qualities apply to the same, to Brahman. Sarvendriya gunabhasam, sarvendriya vivarjitam, asaktam sarvabhrit chaiva, nirgunam gunabhoktricha. Asaktam means unattached. People can become attached to all objects, other people, and work and money and everything. They become attached. But if it is pure consciousness, then how can there be attachment? For example, how can space be attached to anything? Space is in everything. Space in this cup, in that cup, in this hall, outside. It's not attached to anything. Whatever happens to the container, space in the container remains unaffected. Is independent. It cannot become attached. People become attached. Animals also become attached. Dogs are become attached to the owners very much. But for pure consciousness, Brahman, there is no attachment. Asaktam. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a famous sentence. Asango hyayam purushaha. Purusha means there, supreme reality Brahman. Purusha has different meanings. Asangaha, ayam purushaha. This purusha, this pure consciousness, Brahman is free from attachment, no sangha. And why this is being mentioned here, we all have to give up attachment to everything and become free from attachment, then we become one with the divine. What makes me different from God is I have attachment, he has no attachment. That is why in the Gita, the one message is become free from attachment. Attachment to beings, other beings, my child, my money, my garden, my property, my fame, my body, my work, all this attachment we have to slowly give up in stages. How to give up? Easy methods are there. It's not as difficult as we think if you follow the simple procedure. Asaktam, we are discussing asaktam, second line. How to become free from attachment? There's the one message in the Gita, become free from attachment, Tyagi. So I will just begin simple. We are a little bit digression I am doing how to practice asaktam. But it's an important topic. How to become attachment from property, the easiest thing, simplest thing. We have a lot of money, some people have a lot of money, billions of dollars. They have so many houses in different places, mansions everywhere. They have land and they have this money in the bank and stock, whatever they have, money, wealth is there. And they say, this is my money, my house, my property. They say like that, and they feel like that. I am the owner. Now, if a little bit, pause a little bit and think, whose are these things? What is really mine? We don't think about that generally. If we pause a little bit and think, what I call all these things mine, which one of them mine? I call the body also mine, my body. Greatest attachment is the body, then other things will come. If you really think, there is not one thing that I really call mine is mine. Even the body is not mine. Because I did not create it. Although I am feeding food and keeping it, maintaining it, some other people gave this gift of the human birth to me. And it won't be with me all the time. I won't tell you for many more years, but it's not up to me. When the body goes, leaves me, I don't know. It can go tonight, it can go a year from now or 2 years from now. We don't know. No control over it. In what condition it is, I have no control. But still I call it my body. So that is not mine. Then what is it? This body is there. It's a part of nature, Prakriti. This whole body is made up of material objects. Food that we eat, matter, become the cells and the parts of the body. And where is the I? Ego says, ego is part of the mind. Mind is also part of the body. It says, I am this body. There's ignorance. Then who is it that says I? Kshetrajna. Kshetra is the body, Kshetrajna is the knower. I am the body, I. That is pure consciousness. And that is no name, form, no attribute, no attachment, nothing. So like this we should think. Regarding property, my house, my money, a devotee should think that all this belongs to the Lord. He has given this to me for some time because I had asked for it. No one thing comes to us in our life except as we have asked for it by our previous desires, karma. Body does not come unless I have asked for it. No rebirth. If you have no desires, no rebirth. But your desires, so will be, if your desires are to be born again to fulfill the desires. So I asked for it, all these property. It's all really his. Temporarily, I am only a custodian, I'm a manager, I'm a caretaker, I'm a servant of his property. How long? As long as it pleases him. The owner is the Lord himself. He can take this one by one from me, or he can take all of it in 1 second. Harat inimeshat kala sarvam. Shankaracharya says in the Bhajagovinda Stotra, in one twinkling of an eye, everything can be lost. Body, everything can be lost. Property, money, everything. It's only takes a twinkling of an eye for a person to lose everything, including the body. Accidental death doesn't take much time. All the property, money, house which was mine, so dear to me, separated. Doesn't take, or it can go slowly. Anyway, it will go. It's not mine. I am the caretaker. Temporarily, I will take good care of them. It's God's property. I use them properly. He has given it to me because I want it. I take good care of them. It is all his. He will take it back when he needs, when he feels like it. He is the owner. One way to become free from attachment to property. I can have it, it's my name, but I have to maintain it properly, use it properly for the purpose for which it was given. And when the time comes to separate, when it is taken away from me, thank you for letting me have this for so long. I've done my part. You take your property back, I'm free. When death comes, we should be able to say, whether I'm able to or not, I don't know yet. But we should be able to say when death comes, oh Lord, thank you for giving me this body. It had some problems. I took care of it as much as I could. I use it for the purpose for which you gave it to me. The only purpose why human body is given to us is to remember God and to reach God, realize God. I tried as much as I could. Whether I reached the goal or not, I don't know. Please take your property back. Time has come and I am free. I've done my part. Thank you for letting me have the body for so long. It's yours, property, you take it, I'm free now. We should be able to say like that. Like a house sitter, when the real owner comes, you've taken care of the house, you lived in the house. When the real owner comes, you give the house back to him. Tell him you have taken good care of your house, you take your house back, I'm free. That's one way to become free from attachment from property, including body, money, possessions, house, everything. Second thing we attach to are the people in our lives. Very difficult to give attachment to people. My child, my grandchild, my spouse, my parents, my siblings, my friends. They're all the Lord Himself coming into my life to play different roles according to my karma. All these people who come into our lives in any capacity, any relationship, that the Lord Himself who comes in it for. And the role they play in our life, sometimes some people bring happiness to us, sometimes some people bring unhappiness to us. Whatever role they play in our life, the people in our life, is all His play depending on our karma, or the karma. If I've done good deeds, I'll get good people in my life. Nobody bothers me. If I've done bad deeds, if I've given trouble to other people, then they will give trouble to me now. So it's all karma. So sooner or later, they will go away. They will all be there. I have to go, or I'll be here and they will go. Separation will come. As long as they're in my life, I take good care of them, I love them, I respect them, I serve them as much as I can, seeing God's presence in them. When the separation comes, I'm ready, I've done my part. This way to constantly reminding that they are not permanent associations. All associations are temporary. So all associations, including association with the property, people, possession, job, all temporary. One day, sooner or later, they will go. I'm ready for that separation. In this way, by thinking in this way, and most importantly, attachment to work, karma. Gita is full of instructions in every place, every chapter. What the Lord says, whatever work you do, offer it to me. That means you become free from attachment, not your work. You've done it as my service, offering to me, offered it to me, then you are free. You have no connection with that work. So it comes in so many places. Where does it come? Chapter 3, verse 30. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya, other instructions. And more important comes in 9:27. We studied that 9th chapter. Chapter 9, verse 27. Yat karoshi yadashnasi tat kurusamadarpanam. Do it as an offering to me. All work we do is an offering to God. Why we should offer the work? Does He need our work? No, not for His benefit. I become free from attachment to the work and its results. Karma. Second chapter, verse 48. These are key shlokas I am reminding myself also. Second chapter, verse 48. Regarding work and its results. There, Sri Krishna says, very important for 248. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Karmani yogastha kuru, as a yoga, karma yogi, perform all work. How? Two things. Sangam tyaktva, not mine. I'm not the doer. I'm only instrument. God is the doer. Or I'm a doer as a servant. I'm a servant. As a servant, I'm doing it. Britya. Britya means a servant. I'm offering it to Him. No more connection with that work that I've offered to God. Once it is offered, it's up to Him what He does with it. Success, failure is not in my hands. Siddhyo samo bhutva. Second instruction, 248. Siddhi means success. Asiddhi means failure. When you do some work with success, sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. That's not in our hands. That we'll study that in 18th chapter. So whatever work I do, whatever result comes, good or bad, success, failure, loss or gain, I remain unconcerned. It's not up to me. Not my problem. Success comes, I'm calm, accept it calmly. Failure comes, accept it calmly too. Siddhyo samo bhutva. How to become free from attachment to work on its work. Like this, we can go on. So coming back to the word asaktam, which started all this discussion about detachment. Asaktam, the Lord is unconnected. unattached, anything. Pure consciousness, how can it be attached? Sarva Bharat. Bharat means Griha Bharane, to support. He supports everything. It's only because of God's presence that everything functions in the universe. Sun shines because of God's presence in the sun, power of God in the sun. Otherwise, sun cannot produce anything. Moon reflects sun's light and converts sun's light into cool, soothing moonlight because of God's presence in the moon. Fire burns everything because God's power in the fire. Similarly, whole nature functions because of God's presence. Nature means all our bodies and everything included. We are able to eat, walk, talk, and do things, whatever we do, because of God's power here. If that is withdrawn, only dead matter. Animals are able to do these things. They eat, they sleep, they procreate, they make their nests because of God's power in them. Some birds create fantastic designs, and in us, if you see, no engineer can design that one like that. They will do with only their beak, and like, they don't have any no instruction manual, nothing. Fantastic. It's fascinating to watch the nest that birds build. How complicated, how nice, functional they build. How God's power in the bird. Nothing functions without his power, though he is the supporter of all, Sarva Bharat. Being present in all, he supports all beings. Asaktam Sarva Bharat Chaiva Nirgunam, free from the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. They will come in the next chapter. 14th chapter will study three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. He is free from that. We are all subject to three gunas. That came in second chapter, verse 45. There, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, everything in this world is full of three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, good, bad, and indifferent, and in between. Tamas is very bad, Sattva is very good, like that. We will study that in next chapter. But the Lord himself is free from three gunas. Nirgunam. We are subject to three gunas. So what is the instruction for us in the second chapter? Nistrayi gunyo bhavarjuna. Second chapter, Sri Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nityasatvastho Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Traigunya Vishaya Veda. Everything in this world talked about in the Vedas is full of three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. But you become free from three gunas. Nistraigunya Bhava. When you become free from three gunas, you become one with God. God is no God. Three gunas. He is free from three gunas. So we'll come to that in next chapter. Sarva Bharat, Sarva Nirgunam, no, not qualified, not limited by the three gunas. Guna Bhoktracha. At the same time, when he assumes a form, human form, or animal form, and any form, he has the three gunas. Everything in nature has three gunas. When he assumes any form, then three gunas apply to that form. So all opposite qualities are. Next verse is, this will go on until verse number 19. 13 to 19, 13 to 18. Another 2-3 verses. Then the topic changes. So what we are studying now in the present segment is the Supreme Reality Brahman. Anadimat Param Brahma, Supreme Brahman is what we are studying now. Cannot be described in words. Verse number 14. Sarvendriya guna bhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarva bhritchaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. Sarvendriya guna bhasam. Oh, this is what we studied just now. Asaktam sarva bhritchaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. So 14th verse. 15th verse. This is easier. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charameva cha sukshmatvat tadavijneyam durastam chantike chatat. Describing Brahman, supreme reality. Bahihi means outside. Anta means inside. And Bahirantasya bhutanam, of all the beings, living beings, non-living beings, he is outside, he is inside. If you take our bodies, he is inside our body. In every cell, he is there, present. He is outside our body. Same thing. If, just like space, if you take this cup, there's space inside the cup, there's space outside the cup. It's all one space only. There's no real division in space. Appears to be separated because of the cup. Space is only one, indivisible. Like space, consciousness, Brahman is present within us, outside of us. Within every being is present, outside every being is present. There is no discontinuity. It's all one, unbroken continuum, infinite continuum, space, pure consciousness. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha. Charane means to move. Charanam means chara means to move. Acharam is immovable. Yeah, something can be movable if it is present in one place and not present in other place. I am in this room right now in the basement. I can go upstairs, then I won't be here. I can move from here to go upstairs. I can use the elevator. Some people use these steps. But when I am here, I'm not there. When I'm there, I'm not here. I can move from here to there, from there to here. Because I'm only limited in one space. I can only exist in one space. But if something is present everywhere like space, where can space move to where? Space comes in nearest example. Where can space move to where? It's everywhere. There's no place where it is not, from where it can move to where it can move to, from the place where it is. It's everywhere. So God is present everywhere. Brahman is present everywhere. No question of movement. Movement is possible if it is not present in some place. You can go from here to there. No, acharam is immovable. Because it is sarvavyapin, present everywhere. Then charamevacha. As beings, because he's all the beings is he, all beings are he. So as beings, he can move. I can move from here to there. The chair can be moved from here to there. Sometimes they move the whole building from one place to another place. You've seen that one? Whole building is moved along with the foundation, put it in another place. So sun also can move. Sun moves. Earth also moves. Earth moves on its own axis, rotates, causing day and night. Otherwise, it will be difficult. If all the time it is day, then it will be all burnt. If all the time it is night, then it will all be frozen. So mercifully, Earth rotates on its own axis, giving us day and night. Earth moves along around the sun also. Everything is moving. But God is immovable as pure consciousness. As beings, he moves. Acharam charamevacha. It is both outside and inside beings. It is what moves not and what moves. Being subtle, it is hard to know. It is far off as well as near. Sukshmatvat tadavijneyam. If something has name and form qualities, we can know that one. We can see, we can touch, etc. If something is no form, no quality, how to know that one? Not possible. How to know space? I'm in space. Space is within me, outside me. I cannot see space. Can you see space? You see the object in space, but with me and the object, what is there? It's not, there's no form. Like that, pure consciousness, all pervasive, cannot be seen. Sukshmatva, because of sukshmatva, subtlety, because it is extremely being subtle, cannot be captured by the sense organs. It cannot be seen. Avijneyam cannot be known by the sense organs. Eye cannot see, ear cannot hear, hand cannot touch. Pure consciousness. Sukshmatvat tadavijneyam durashtam is quite far away. Antike, the nearest one to us. God is the farthest object to those who don't want to know God. God is the nearest object for everybody because He is our very self, closer than the body itself, closer than the mind itself with itself. That He came in the 10th chapter as self. I am present in all. Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashayastitaha. 10th chapter, I think verse number 28. As the Atman, as the self, I am present in all. Sarvabhuta Shayastita, nearest to us. No relative is closer to us than God. The nearest people are husband, wife, mother, child, very close to each other. But God is closer to us than the mother, than the child, than husband. Antike, very close. Durastam, for those who don't recognize God, don't realize God, He is not even present. They say there is no such thing as God. No question of near or far. So dismiss it. So for them it is. He is far away. So like that. And there are how many? 3 more verses in this segment. Then we go to a different topic, Prakriti Purusha. Very interesting. Let me say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavanta Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from diseases and other problems. May all realize and practice what is noble, dharmic, and auspicious. May no one be subject to misery. Om, peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace among all the beings, harmony among all the beings. Adibhautika Shanti. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Adidaivika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. All of you stay well. If you have questions, comments, you can bring them up now. Question or comment?
So, is the Atman, Brahman, soul, and consciousness, all these 4 words, do they mean same thing or they're different?
Soul is different. Atman, Brahman, consciousness, they are all same. Atman in relation to when it associated with a particular body, and Brahman when it is infinite, open, everywhere. But same pure consciousness, both are same. So Vedanta says, I am Atma, Brahma. This Atman is same as Brahman. Atman means consciousness in me is same as universal consciousness everywhere. No different. Like space in this cup is same as space outside the cup. I am the cup, body mind is the cup. So what's the difference between space in the cup, outside, space outside the cup? Same. But we call it, give a special name because it is confined to a particular cup, 6 ounce capacity, cylindrical in section like that. So it appears to be a different one. No difference between Atman and Brahman. Same.
How is soul different than Atman, Brahman then?
Soul is a particular jiva. The consciousness in a particular body, like a human being, combined with the body, mind, etc., that unit is called a soul. Kshetrajna we call it earlier. That particular space combined only within the cup, separated, that is given a special name as space in the cup is called jiva. Behaves like an independent being. It's not really independent, but ego makes it. My ego is a part of the mind, makes it feel like I'm a separate person. That is soul. That is Jivatma or soul. That will merge with the Paramatman. Soul will merge with Paramatman at the time of liberation. So separate I will not be there. I will be merged with the supreme reality, Brahman. Only he remains. But some devotees don't want to merge. They want to always remain separate. Like Sri Ramakrishna, Hanuman, they didn't want to be merged with Brahman. Say, I want to remain separate as a devotee. You be my Lord, Prabhu, and Divine Mother. I am your child. That's their preference.
That's interesting, because in my mind always that God realization, I thought it was the ultimate thing, and everybody is seeking that. Okay.
Most people want realization. They want to be merged in God, to merge in God. But some people want to remain separate from God. If you merge in God, then only Brahman remains. There is no I, there is no you, there is no devotee, there is no Lord. Only Brahman. That is preference. Complete merger, Sayujyam. But some people, devotees, they want to keep separate identity. I don't want to become Vishnu, I want to be devotee of Vishnu. Sri Ramakrishna said, I don't want to become sugar, I want to eat sugar. Separation. Their preference.
So one can be God realized, but still can be independent.
Yes, possible.
I see. Okay.
Look at simple example, Sri Ramakrishna. He got realized, he also separate. He preferred to be separate.
So when one is separate, based on their karmas, they might come back again. They might take another life. They might take another birth.
When they realize God, all karma will be finished.
Okay.
All karma, there is no more karma to be worked out. But they may take birth if they are so ordained by God to teach others, not to work out their karma.
Not to work out the karmas, though. Okay, got it.
They may, most of them don't. They just went to remain in samadhi, or they remain as Brahmajnanis, Jivan Muktas. Then they they will be liberated. It depends on God's will. Who will be reborn? If a karma to work out, will have to be reborn. No choice. But Jivan Muktas don't realize God, they have no karma. Only then only realization will come. And all the karma is finished. Nothing to work out.
Got it. Thank you, Swamiji.
Very good.
Swamiji Sundarvalli here. What does Prajnanam Brahma mean, Swamiji? Like Ahamatma Brahma, Tattvamasi, all that is there, right? But when you say Prajnanam Brahma, that is also one Mahavakyam. What does Prajnanam Brahma mean?
Pure consciousness. Consciousness not associated with any particular object. Formless, attributeless, infinite, pure consciousness.
So when you say Aham Tattvamasi, I am that, so you just say I am the pure consciousness when you say Prajnanam Brahma?
Aham Brahmasmi, Mahavakya means, Aham means not the body mind.
That light in me.
The consciousness within me, which makes the body mind function, remains unseen. That is same as consciousness Brahman. Like space in the cup is same as space outside. There is no difference. But it appears to be separate because of its association with the cup.
So Prajnanam Brahma is that same thing?
Pure consciousness, infinite pure consciousness.
So that's not saying I am that pure consciousness. It's just saying infinite I am that infinite consciousness. Is that saying that, or just saying Prajnanam Brahma?
You cannot say I am consciousness as long as you are body consciousness. When you say you have body consciousness, then you cannot say I am Brahman, because you are still separate as the ego. So
when they give you 4 Mahavakyas and say Tattvamasi, Ayamatma, Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, and all that, when they're saying in the same sentence,
they all mean the same thing from different perspectives.
So
Prajnana Brahma, third person, that means pure consciousness is Brahman. What the other one? I am Atma Brahma. This individual Atman is same as Brahman when not associated with the body. Giving a body consciousness.
So Prajnana Brahma is basically pure consciousness.
Pure consciousness. Infinite pure consciousness. Eternal, unchanging, no birth, no death. Described in 220 in the Gita.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Namaste, Swamiji. I want to go back to verse number 13, which says the beginningless Brahman, which lies beyond existence and non-existent existence. Can you please explain this again? And if I know, and after you have explained to us these 5 verses or 6 verses, and we know that God is, Brahman is who is, then are we ready for immortality, or are we going to experience this in what form before we say we can now be ready for immortality? Can you just go through that verse?
Verse number 13.
Yes.
Sarvata Panipadam, that one, Sarvatokshi Shiromukham.
No, in our book, it's number Jnanam Yat Tat Pravakshami.
Oh, previous one.
I shall now reveal to you that which ought to be known, and by knowing which one attains immortality.
Amritamasnuti.
Yeah.
Jnanam, Jnayam here means supreme reality Brahman. In the commentary, it is given there. What is to be known, Jnayam means what is to be known.
Okay.
That is Brahman. That will be described in the next 3-4 verses, 4-5 verses. By knowing that, we become immortal.
Okay. And what is beyond existence and non-existence?
That is something which cannot be described, either existent or non-existent, or neither.
Okay.
Because if it is an object, if it is an object, we can say it is or is not.
Okay.
Any object that we can see separate from us, we can say it is or is not. Only one possibility. It cannot be both.
I see.
Let it go. He is either is present or not present. But Brahman is not an object like the book. So it can't be described in words.
Yes, yes. Okay, I got it.
Swamiji, namaste. I thought Atman and soul, Seema here, is the same, because soul is a Western term which doesn't really explain the richness of Atman, which is a Sanskrit term, Paramatma and Atman. And then I thought Atman was equivalent to Jivatma, or could you explain the difference? Paramatma, Atma, Jivatma.
The word Atma has many different meanings. Atma can mean the body, physical body. One meaning. Atma can mean the mind, subtle body. Atma can mean the Jivatma, individual soul. Atma can mean the Paramatma. All 4 meanings are there, that's why it is confusing. Here Atma means Jivatma, individual soul. It is same as Paramatman, except that it is limiting itself by associating with a particular body. I am this person, that is Jivatma.
So there's no distinction as we were thinking.
No distinction between Jivatma and Paramatma, except Jivatma is limited aspect. Space in the cup, Jivatma, space outside the cup, Paramatma. What's the difference? Same space, only one space is there. So Jivatma appears to be a separate being because of ignorance. I am this person, I am this body, I am this cup. So that misidentification, superimposition, that is the ignorance. If that is removed, knowledge comes, self-knowledge comes, only Brahman. There was no other thing actually present. I thought I was separate. That's
So
why I call
that
it
is the
realization. We realize
that-
that it was always the same.
right.
Even now
So
we
that
are
is
Brahman.
so that
Even
is
now,
Advaita.
yeah.
It's
Even now,
Advaita. Oneness
everybody
is Brahman and Atman, and that's Advaita. They're not two. They're just the space outside the cup and inside the cup is the same.
absolutely same.
Right. It just appears
Because
to
of-
be limited.
Because of ignorance, we think we're all separate, identifying with the body. Bodies are separate, don't matter. That
Mm.
is. If I
Pranam
think I'm the
Swami.
body, I'm separate. If I think I'm Atman, I'm same as Paramatma.
Pranam Swamiji, this is Geeta. So,
Gita, oh, okay. I'm only seeing your name here.
okay.
Okay. I can see
So
your partner.
Swamiji, yeah. So Swamiji, I wanted to ask you was that it's when as one is able, when somebody realizes God, then it's easy to see God in other people. But
Mm.
how do we on a day-to-day basis learn to see God in everyone? You know, we get caught up with the external form mostly. Then one has to work hard to say, no, they are spirit. So they are Atma. So is there any way you can suggest?
How to see God in others?
Yeah, I mean, right, yeah, to make it more normal, you know, on a day-to-day basis.
There was a Swami in Sacramento. His name was Swami Shraddhanandaji. I had the good fortune of meeting him a couple of times. He has written a very nice book called Seeing God Everywhere. The name of the book. Seeing God Everywhere. We have that in our bookstore. So there, Swamiji has described how to see God in everyone. It's a
Right.
big book, not a very big book, medium-sized book.
Right. Okay, Swami. Thank you, sir.
He made my task easier.
Yeah, Swamiji Pranam.
Ah,
This is Devashish. So
they were
Swamiji,
very
yes,
good.
you know, last week you started about this, what is to be known, and that's what we are discussing. I mean, that's how we started. And then you also mentioned about union with God is immortal, right? Union,
Immortality.
immortality, right? So,
That is Amritatvam.
right. But, you know, in the case of Ramakrishna, or many of the things that we know, because AIM recorded them or Saradananda, Swami Saradananda wrote or others wrote, you know. Now, how do we know? Because we could say that the rishis and the sages, but how did the knowledge get transferred? Because a long time ago, there was no scripture or nothing. It was only the Gurukulam. That is, you go to the Guru tells you something and tells you something. So somebody must have recorded all this. That's how we have got all these scriptures, right? And then if you look at Christ and all this, there was nobody who recorded the stuff for him, really.
No,
Sorry?
his disciples recorded.
Oh, Christ was recorded by somebody.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, his disciples recorded his teachings.
But not right away. It was much later, right?
That I am not sure. Maybe there was a time difference. There was a time like this. Not immediately.
Yeah. So these scriptures and all these things have come, right? So somebody had to write because somebody.
Yeah.
So
Like
before,
for example, the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna were written down by his disciples.
Right.
Swami Saradananda,
yeah.
and they were spoken about by Swamiji. Swamiji talked about Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. Holy Mother talked about Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, and disciples all talked about. They were recorded, and we have the scriptures.
Right.
But in the ancient rishis, like Yajnavalkya, all those people whose teachings are recorded in the Upanishads, we don't know who recorded them, at what time, how much interval was there. We have no idea. These are all so ancient. We have no very accurate historical chronology of what happened when, who wrote when, what.
Because,
It's
because
not important. It's not important. The teachings make sense, and those who follow the teachings have reached the goal. So that is enough for us.
yeah, because the question always arises, how do we know that union with God is immortal? Because as you just said today, that Ramakrishna, Hanuman, they actually kept a separate identity. So they
wanted separate identity. They wanted to remain separate from God as devotees, as a child.
okay.
See, Ramakrishna said to Divine Mother, although he had Brahmajnana, he told Divine Mother, I don't want to have Brahmajnana, give it to those who are seeking. I want to be your 5-year-old child playing on your lap. Let me be like your child. He said, I don't want to become sugar. I want to eat sugar. Be separate.
Right. But then how does someone make a statement, the union with God is immortal? How do you become immortal? How do you know that? That if
Okay.
you
How do
really
you know?
merge
How
with
do you
God,
know? How do you know whatever Gita says is true, or any book says
well,
is
we
true?
have to accept something. Otherwise, you like theorem or axioms,
Called,
you can see like quantum mechanics, right? You have to accept certain things, and then you see that it does apply and it works.
yeah, a very good question.
Yeah.
There is a branch of knowledge in Vedanta, in Hinduism, called Pramana. Pramana means how do you know that certain thing is true?
Right.
When somebody makes a statement, and it's not immediately verifiable, how do you know it is true?
Right.
So we have 6 different Pramanas, different systems, philosophy of different Pramanas. First Pramana is direct experience, nothing better than that.
Right.
If I experience the truth myself, then I have no more doubt or question. Pratyaksha, that is the first best Pramana. Then there is no doubt remaining. I know it from experience, right? That is the best. But Pratyaksha Pramana, knowing God, directly experiencing God, takes a lot of tapas, effort. Then how else do we know? Then second thing is Shruti Pramana. Shruti means the Vedas, Upanishads. What the Vedas and Upanishads say, they are true. That is accepted by all the sages who experience the truth of Vedas. After experiencing what the Vedas have said is true, they said, yes, this is true from their experience. Then that takes us to the another Pramana, which is called Aptavakya. Aptavakya means those people like Sri Ramakrishna and other saints, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, other saints who experience God realization, they said God is present, God is. Their words are not subject to doubt. They have so much faith in their words, because now Sri Ramakrishna would not tell a lie.
Right.
He said, I have seen God, God is exists. So that is proof enough for us. It's not an ordinary person saying something about something. We don't have to believe what everybody says. But if somebody like Sri Ramakrishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, other sages have said God is present, I've seen God, then we accept it as the truth. Because we cannot doubt. They have so much faith in their words, in their truthfulness, veracity. So that becomes our...
because they have realized it. That's why they could say it.
So we have to realize, to say that ourselves. Ultimate proof is realization. I give another example. Supposing you're driving long distance, say from Raleigh to Washington, and some place you have to take a break, a coffee break. And then you go to take an exit and go to some restaurant, have a coffee, refreshment. And you come back, then you want to go back to the highway, 95 North. And you can't find it. And which way to go to 90? There is no sign there.
The Bartan is...
Then you have to ask somebody. You see a gas station there. You stop at the gas station, you ask the gas station person how to get back to 95 North. I want to go towards Washington. The gas station attendant give you instructions. These instructions are, make a left turn here, go 1 mile, you'll see a traffic light, make a right turn there, go 2 miles, you'll sign for 95 north. He says that one to you. Now what do you do? Do you believe him or don't believe him? If you don't believe him, you ask him, how do you know that that is the right way to go? He says, I've given the directions, I've gone there myself. You can go there, make a left turn here, first traffic light, 2 miles, make a right turn, you'll see 95 north sign. He says that one. Beyond that, he can't convince you. If you don't believe him, you stay there and you'll be staying there because you don't know whether he's telling the truth or not. You're doubt.
Right.
You have reason to doubt because you don't know. Everybody says everything is not always true.
Yeah,
So you can,
you
or
verify.
the second option is take it as a hypothesis, as a basis, make the left turn at the first traffic light, go to miles, make a right turn in the second traffic. If you see 95, no, then you know that what he said was true.
Right.
You know it only by experience. You have to experience it. To experience it, you have to follow the instruction. You won't get to 95 north unless you follow the instruction.
Right.
To follow the instruction, if you don't follow, don't believe, then you stay where you are. So if you believe God is there, God is present, can be realized, as Sri Ramakrishna said, do some tapas, as he said, gave instructions how to do. Also he gave instructions. Follow instructions, which he got, then you know it was true. If you don't have words, faith in somebody's words in scriptures or what sages say, then you stay where you are. You'll never realize God without any effort, by God's grace.
Yeah.
So the choices are, either believe the scriptures and the words of the sages, and the other pramanas are also are there, Paramana, all those things. Or you don't do anything.
Right.
So the best thing is to
so
choose
what is the
what
is the fifth one? Swamiji, you said 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah,
There are 3 more. One is Anumana. Anumana means inference.
I got it. Yeah.
Anumana means inferential knowledge.
Yeah.
This creation is there. There must be a creator.
Right.
Everything is functioning.
Right.
And some example, they give, I don't know all the 6 pramanas very accurately, I have forgotten, so read them some time ago. Supposing you see when you're driving and you see a huge cloud of smoke, right? And a distance. And then what do you conclude?
Yeah.
There must be fire. You're not seeing the fire. You're seeing the smoke.
Right.
So you're seeing the creation functioning. So there must be a creator. Unless there is fire, there is no smoke. But you're not seeing the fire, only seeing the effect, that one. So there must be a creator. Like that, you infer the presence of God.
Yeah.
Like that, some other pramanas are there. Arthapati, Anubalabdhi, those are all different systems of philosophy follow different pramanas. For us, this is enough. Shruti pramana, Aptavakya pramana. Sages, the teachings of sages who experience God, that is enough proof for us to continue our journey. Otherwise, we'll be staying where we are. We won't believe.
Yeah. Right. Now, thank you, Swamiji. Pranam.
Swamiji, one last question. When we say people see God and all that, that is true because those experiences do happen even for some of us. But there's also a concept of Jivan Mukta. You realize that you are Brahman. How do you differentiate you actually seeing God and then you getting to a state of Jivan Mukta, where you have realized yourself, which like Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna has already realized himself.
Jivan Mukta
But he
means
also sees God.
Jivan Mukta is a person who is liberated. We have seen God, but still body has to continue to finish the prarabdha. That person has some more karma to be worked out, but he has realized the goal, reached the goal, but the body has to go through the emotions, good, bad, suffering, enjoyment, everything, praise and blame will be there, but he is not connected with it. According to the onlookers, people see him as a body. Like take the example of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. People thought he was the man sitting there with not much clothing on his body in his sofa or walking around the Pradakshina, Giri Pradakshina, talking Tamil. That's how he looked. Nothing extraordinary special about his appearance. But if you ask him who you are, then that's a different thing. He never felt he was the body. He is the Atman, identified with the Atman.
So
But why he
Jivan
is still living there after reaching God? The body has to go through the remaining portion of Prarabdha.
So even if you're a Jivan Mukta, you still can also see God. You can experience that.
You're experiencing God every moment
Yes.
as Jivan Mukta.
Yes.
Then that's when he become liberated. Mukta means liberated from all the bondage of birth and death and suffering, pain. You can't insult him, you can't make him angry, you can't make him disturb him in any way. He remains absolutely calm and peaceful. Inwardly. Outwardly, he may just transact with other people, nothing different. He also eats, he also sleeps, he also works. Nothing different from other people.
Thank you so much.
Swamiji, this is Padma again. I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So we have to, or we have to at least, if we are not, to train ourselves to see Brahman in everybody, God in everybody. But I think I wrote the notes that we should be seeing Brahman in everybody, but also we should use common sense and buddhi in situations or people. Even though our mind, that was my biggest confusion for many, many years in situations for almost 20 years where I did not have the knowledge, I did not have the language that we are speaking right now. But I had that instinct that I want to see good in everybody, and maybe it meant to see Brahman in everybody. And somehow I was not able to find that fine boundary or the line. What is my dharma like? Because spiritually, the situations were causing me pain and agony, and I was still continuing to wanting to see Brahman. Okay, see the good. But if I understand it correctly, yes, it is good that you want to see Brahman in everybody, but also we should use common sense to perceive the situations and people when it's beyond your spiritual control or your spiritual boundaries are crossed. Is that right, Swamiji?
Yes. When you apply the rule, God is present in all. The best example is given by Sri Ramakrishna. In the Gurukulam, there was a boy, there were many boys. When the boys were collecting firewood and collecting water and doing other chores, a wild elephant comes. So in the forest, Gurukulam was in the forest. A wild elephant comes, and the mouth cannot control the elephant. Mouth is saying, everybody get out of the way, this wild elephant. So all the boys ran away to safety. One boy remembered this teacher's instruction, God is present in all, even in animals. So he stood there, right in the path of the oncoming wild elephant, started praying to elephant Narayana. Elephant does not know anything about God or anything. So elephant, the boy standing in spot, took him on his trunk and threw him away and went away. The boy became injured. Then when the other boys took him back to the ashrama and he regained consciousness, after some time the teacher asked him, why didn't you, like other boys, run away and to safety and save yourself? Why did you stay right in the path of the wild elephant? And the boy says, sir, you every day in the class you say God is present in all. We should see God in everything and everybody, animals also. Teacher said, the Mahout was asking you to move away. In him also God was there. God was telling you to move away, Mahout Narayana. You didn't pay attention. You saw God only in the elephant, not in the Mahout. So when you apply the rule, you should be careful. You should not jump into. Actually, in Washington Zoo some years ago, a visitor jumped into the lion's den. There were two lions there. Maybe how she did, I don't know, because there are a lot of barricades there. It's not easy to cross. So somehow she jumped into the lion. The lions killed her. So that does not work. God is present in lion too. Lion does not know anything about God. So we have to apply this carefully. Wicked people, we should not get too close to them, friendly with them. They God is them, but they don't know anything about God. So they are not realized it.
They're disconnected. So now I see it like Brahman is there in a person, but if they're materialistically so detached from the Brahman himself, then then it is fair for us to look at them from the materialistic point and take care of ourselves or protect and use our common sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
You have to deal with them, take care of them as much as possible as your duty calls for. But know that God is present in them. It does not mean that they are aware of God's presence or anything.
Thank you, Swamiji.
You're welcome. Very good.